So let's start at the beginning. This was not the first costume I started after I had Felix, but it was the first one I finished. The first one I started, I finished second. And the reason for that was the first one that I had started was much more labor intensive. And I was like, let's start a simpler one because you have to sort out fit now as things have changed. And that was, it's a hard thing to talk about. Not that the topic's difficult, but I know responses to it can be a little, so hold it in, hold it together. But making bras for larger chest sizes and support for dance is much more difficult, or I found it to be much more difficult. It was a learning curve for me. So I finished this costume first, and when I finished the bra, it didn't fit at all, despite me fitting beforehand and starting. So I had to take it all apart and get a different base and start over. Which is one of the reasons I'm glad I switched to a simpler design, because I was kind of anticipating. I'm like, hey, you kind of don't know what you're doing with the big tatas. So maybe you need to start on something simpler. So this is a much more bare bones, simple, basic design. I also personally really love simple designs because I tend to be, I think, a very animated or like a busier dancer. And I feel like really elaborate costumes on me can end up looking overwhelming. Although I do like floof. That would be like the exception. I do like floof and like ruffles and volume, but I don't like as a ton of straps or like accents or a ton of beaded fringe because it can kind of move like a weapon. And that is like, I should clarify, I love looking at it. Just because you like how something looks doesn't mean you like dancing in it or wearing it. One of my biggest motivators in making my own costumes was, as I went along with dancing, was realizing in order for me to dance my best, I needed to feel my best. And that's not just aesthetic. I needed to feel like when I went to move, I could move. Costumes can be quite heavy or quite restrictive or don't necessarily have parts that stretch. So it was important to me to figure out how to make costumes for myself that felt like me in aesthetic, and also like I felt like I could move freely without too much concern. I wanted them to stretch in certain parts but still be supportive. I like them actually to be a certain amount. I actually prefer them to be a bit on the heavier side because I feel like it anchors and weights them and I feel more confident in them. And then I also feel like the resistance helps you to build your dancing better and work a bit harder. For me, light costumes I feel a little insecure in. But this one is actually, I would class as one of my lighter ones, and it's a much more simple design. There's no fringe. It's just, well, come on in there. Crystals, flat back crystals and pearls, various tones of purple flowers, and a really beautiful like purple satin skirt. So I'll do some close-ups of her. It's just 2 armbands. And now it's funny because she finished her, I want to say May 2023. Coming into 2023, I hadn't done any shows yet since my son, and I was getting asked, like, hey, are you still doing shows? Can we book you? And I was like, I have no costume. So I was kind of panicked. And, dance costumes or something, people say, oh, just go buy some. Especially once you get out of that, like, normal size range. Off the rack gets more and more limited. And then all those fit factors and then custom ordering is a whole other thing. It also takes a long time. So I was like, okay, well, let's just figure out and make some. And then once I have, 2 done, I can start saying yes to stuff. And that's what I did. So this was the first one. And again, simple. So I'm thinking, because she's done about, I don't know, I forgot my piece of paper, about 15 or so shows now. Maybe more. I'll update that accurately. It might be less, might be more. That I may add a fringe. I think she could benefit from a fringe. I'm like, calm down on the ruffles, but I'm like, I also feel like it's, there's some beauty in keeping it very simple with like the clean lines without much clutter going on. So I might just leave her as is, or I might add fringe or ruffles or both or nothing. I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. And I don't think I ever named her. I always just write her down as like lavender satin flowers. So I think I'll just call her like Lavender. I don't know. If you have a name idea, please, she should have one. Yeah, let's I'll take you for a tour of her up close. I just did 2 armbands. They stretch, so they slide on nicely. They're not lined. Yee. But the costume's lined though. And then the bra and the belt. So you can see there's the satin under the cup, and the flowers do the transition to the like champagne lycra, the closest I can find to my skin tone. And there's a blend of lavender, like flat black pearls, and then more Swarovski fat blacks. So I had all the stuff for this costume from before I was even pregnant. And then, so the only thing I had to do was change the sizing, which, you know, changed my numbers on how much of stuff I needed. So that was also a learning curve. So it fit. The belt was not much different. I think it was like a 2-inch different, but the bra was significant. So yeah, again, pretty simple. I love florals. The florals are such a repeat in my costuming, and I'm not sorry about it. That's not going to change. I can't help it. I can't garden. So it's like, if you can't garden, then I have to get that flower love out otherwise. I'm sure I could learn to garden, just not inclined. Yeah, I do feel like some fringe or some ruffles would be nice. I always attach my skirts to my belt. Now, yes, this does remove some versatility. And yes, you can see we started really lining. She's lined with these really sweet purple unicorns, cotton, like her jersey. And honestly, she looks pretty spectacular for little tiny bits of upkeep. So there's some pulls now along the crinoline hemline, some little stuff like that. Let's see if it'll focus. Yoo-hoo. Okay, it doesn't want to. And there's one run at the back of the skirt. There it is. It's not terrible, but it's not, I mean, it's not ideal, but it's not a horrible one. You can probably press it out to look a bit better. So there she is. I always like that front seam to vanish that way. There we go. Time to show you my new purple costume. The belt has that much overlap because Molly Mannequin's hips are much smaller than mine. Starting at the bottom, we used a satin with no stretch with side point. I somewhat regret. I much prefer the stretch satin. Did a matching 2-inch crinoline trim on the hem. I did some, obviously, fake flowers and some flat back pearls, and the flatbacks are Swarovski because I had them in my hoard from before Swarovski did their whole "we're not selling to the average human" shenanigans, and some acrylic flatbacks as well. Obviously, you can tell the difference, which is where. 2 floral armbands. Also have a matching purple mesh shrug and full long sleeve body stocking. And one of my favorite details, because I think I'm funny, is the lining. Lined with a stretch cotton jersey that I had that has unicorns on it. So I thought that was fun. And I lined the gusset of the body stocking to match. Haha. I'll just quickly show you the back. And there's our back. There we go.